Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Dream with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual neurolinguistic programming and cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court-appointed and private, marriage counseling using the EFT method, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one sessions in both French or English, and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV Therapy and Coaching Services at 301-325-1550, and our website can be found on lifecoachdanamzalak.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our 9th episode of season 14, a very special guest and host of the Creating Greatness podcast, Mr. Robert Prasch. And just like every of my past episodes, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Robert, the floor is yours.
Hey, how you doing, Dr. Dan? And thank you so much for inviting me on the show. Yes, my name is Robert Prasch, and my podcast is called Creating Greatness. And it's basically centered around a person who lived for a very long time, miserable and unhappy and very self-destructive, and going from that place of a zero quality of life to now reaching heights of 100 and better, very comfortable, happy, joyous, and free. And that's my message, to just share how I did it. And I'm happy to be here to share it some more.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And obviously, as you mentioned, the unhappy part, that falls within the realm of the Happiness Journey podcast. And this is where you were a very good fit. So the story of that man, is it you?
I'm sorry?
The story of that man that was very unhappy and came to becoming happy, is that something that you face yourself in this kind of like level of unhappiness?
Yeah, all my teaching is from life experience. You know, it's wonderful to have a doctor with so many specialties such as yourself to be able to provide information to the folks out there that are struggling, but it's also valuable to have the experiential knowledge. And that's something that I am an expert in. I lived for a very long time stuck in a sort of narcissistic, criminal mentality, addictive, extreme mentality. And those characteristics within my personality really led me down a sort of train wreck lifestyle, brought me to some very low places of the feeling of a human soul. Moments where I would wake up in the morning and curse God for awaking me. I was miserable. I did not want to go on. And I would see people with wonderful, happy lives, and they have children and spouses and jobs and careers and wonderful, nice cars and homes and all these things. And I sort of didn't know how they did it. And if I didn't think it was obtainable for me, I didn't think I deserved it. So even reaching for that was just unthinkable for me. Fortunately for me, I learned about meditation and yoga. And at first there was some resistance there. I really had to open myself up to other sort of ideas and stop categorizing everything as for someone else or not for me, or, you know, yoga's for women and meditation's for monks. Like, no, these are tools that you can implement in your life day to day and sort of integrate them into whatever life you want. You don't have to be a monk on the mountain, or, you know, some woman in a gym going to do yoga. We could do these things too. They're tools for us. And I sort of started playing around with meditation and starting doing a little bit of yoga, connecting the breath to the movements. And then came in the power of prayer. And prayer was sort of funny for me, because when I started praying, I was sort of an atheist. I didn't know what to believe in. I didn't know how to pray. And my life was so bad that I had a hard time believing in God. But here's the thing. I seen people that prayed and saw their lives were better than mine. So I had faith, and that was sort of the first step, that prayer would make my life better. And in the beginning, it was a non-denominational, just a releasing of whatever I had to say. And that act alone was really powerful. So I always promote this holy trinity of spiritual and emotional wellness that I found, which is prayer, yoga, and meditation. I always make the connection of the meditation activated my mind, the yoga activated my body, the prayer activated my spirit and my soul. And when I was able to align those three aspects of who I am, I became a very powerful being and was able to box my way out of all of my problems and all of myself inflicted problems, and create this life that I have today.
Beautiful. Wow, that's a very deep answer. But now I'm sure that a lot of listeners will be asking the question, how long is that process, Robert? I mean, from being down in the dumps as you were to becoming a recovering human being and realizing that you had so much to offer to society, but yet you just didn't know which path to take. So are we talking about a decade? Are we talking about 5 years, 2 years? Because as you know, people have that mentality of instant gratification. They want to be able to see results quickly. So what was your journey in terms of time?
Well, I think that's sort of a problem with our society today, that people are very focused on the destination. And what they don't realize is the beauty is in the journey, man.
Mhm.
And the timetable is your life. Your life is your journey. Your life is the work. It doesn't stop,
Mhm.
because every destination that you reach, whether it's sustainable happiness or financial success or emotional intelligence and emotional wellness or spiritual soundness, there's always new and next levels. Every destination, every goal is just a plateau to what's next.
That's
If you get caught up on the destination and think once you've got there, you've arrived, you're very susceptible to fall off and or maintain yourself into mediocrity. And that's what we talk about in creating greatness. Like, we don't stop. We keep our foot on the pedal. We keep sort of like our boot on the neck of life, not a person, of just continually sharpening that philosophy of continuous improvement. I'm a black belt in Lean Six Sigma, and it's one of the philosophies that I took from that and implemented into my life is continuous improvement, man. And every place that I reach, I know that it's just a stepping stone to what's next. In terms of time to see results, it depends on what you're detaching from. The
okay.
detachment is important in any healing process, whether it be drugs and addiction, like myself, and criminal thinking and narcissistic behaviors. Sort of a detachment away from all of the influences, all of the people and toxic things, places and things that you're being influenced by. That detachment from those things and detoxing your body will eliminate all those influences that you don't even know are happening. And at that time, you can start looking into what you want to do to be better. And you can see results very quickly. If you get that detachment, you get that influences out, you'll start to figure out who you really are and what you really want to be doing. And you start feeling that sense of purpose. Once you start feeling that sense of purpose, you can move forward in your truth. For me, it was prayer, meditation, and yoga, and then beyond, some more things that we talk about on the podcast. But very early on, I experienced results. As soon as I was detoxed from the toxic people, the toxic places, the toxic things, about a week into that detachment, I already felt better. And then when I added in, you could do yoga today for 5 minutes and you will feel better that day if you pay attention. So the results are, if you stop eating sugary foods or stop drinking alcohol, you may go through periods where you're
Which
not feeling your best, but very soon after, you'll immediately start feeling results. If you work out today for 20 minutes, a cardiovascular workout, you will feel the results today. And embody the journey, embrace that journey, and don't always focus on the destination.
That's so true, Robert. And when it comes to guidance, was it a self-guidance journey or a self-guided journey, or was it someone that you had a mentor that were able to help you out or assist you or kind of like give you the tips to be able to achieve your goals much quicker versus having to go through the long route?
Well, I think it's important to get to a place where you realize you don't have all the answers. That was important for me. I seen that my life was really messed up. I also started making the connection that it was my fault. So there was responsibility and accountability had to come into play. And at that time, you realize, yeah, I'm not doing this thing right, man. I may not have all the answers. And what that does is provide a sort of willingness and an openness to look and listen. And yeah, I believe in angels and spirit guides and mentors and coaches all over the world. And it doesn't have to be what you think it may be. It may be something out in nature. It may be someone that you meet for one day for a few minutes. Or it could be that longer, sustainable guide or guru if that's what you need. You know, my influences early on were Sadhguru. He is he's a founder of the Isha Yoga Center. And I took his class, Inner Engineering, which I always advocate for people to do. It really helps you be able to effectively manage your emotions. You know, people are trying to escape their emotions often. They don't know how to manage them. They don't know how to cope. And these emotions cause powerful fluctuations in ourselves, and we don't even know it. So instead of avoiding these emotions, avoiding anger, avoiding stress, now I've learned to effectively manage them. But since then, I've moved on to everyone out there that's talking good stuff. Tony Robbins, Dave Goggins, Jordan Peterson is one of my favorite speakers. And I don't agree with everything any of them say, but I take little bits and pieces. I take what I can use and I leave the rest. And I think that's the important part as well. No one is gonna tell you everything that you need to hear to be better. It's already inside of you. But yes, we can look and listen to people that have done it and have succeeded to pick up little pieces that fit for us in our lives.
You know, Albert Einstein once said, Robert, that the mind that creates the problem cannot be the same mind that finds a solution. Because if you allow yourself to, with constant negativity, how are you supposed to be able to get out of this vortex of toxicity? Now, if you were the one who was going through life in a very, very difficult path that you did, and the question is that how did the same mind was able to find that way out without really getting the assistance of other people that were there 24/7 and helping you out and lending a hand to be able to tell you, hey, Robert, this is the path to take?
Well, that is a difficult aspect of it. You know, early on, when I was trying, I seen that maybe I was capable of bettering my life. I still had this really big roadblock in my way, which was my thinking patterns.
Mm-hmm.
I was overly negative. My perspective was all focused on me and my problems. And I didn't see the larger scope of things. Something that powerful that came into my life, and it was a book by Bo Lozoff called We're All Doing Time, where he said, the biggest human tragedies and triumphs really mean very little in the grand scope of this huge, colossal thing that we are a part of. Now, that's not to minimize our problems because they're very relevant within our lives, but it's just to give you a little bit of perspective on it. And I once asked this teacher that came into a facility that I was institutionalized in, and he would say, you know, you have to change your thinking. You have to change your thinking. I raised my hand and I said, sir, how do you do that? Because I was really struggling within my own mind, and I blanked him. He had no answer for it. But what I have found, and I speak about it on Creating Greatness, is I have the answer to that question. And the first step is, yes, expand your perspective to encompass the whole grandness of the universe within your equation of thinking. First step, understand that you are that. Everything that is in this grand, amazing, wonderful, limitless universe, you are a piece of that. So hold on to that perspective while making decisions. Second is the separation and the detachment that I talked about. Once you get rid of those outside influences, you can really begin to figure out who you are, why you're here, and what you're supposed to be doing. And those are powerful answers once you figure that out for yourself. And then the meditation. The meditation, literally, I'm sure you being a doctor, I've seen some of the studies on it. It changes your brain. You can become smarter, sharper, more kind, more loving, more gentle. Anything that you push your intention into during your meditation, it will happen given time. But once again, this is one of those things where Don't get focused on the destination. Don't get focused on enlightenment. It may take lifetimes to achieve.
Yes.
Focus on progress. Focus on becoming just a little bit better than you were yesterday, a little bit happier, a little bit healthier, making a few more better decisions. And over that course of time, you will fall and you will fail and you will make mistakes. But this is what your life will look at rather than this.
Mhm.
It will look like this.
Slow.
You're on a wave and you're going up and down, but the trajectory over time is always going up.
That is so true. And also the same thing is that a lot of people say, well, all this is great, Robert, but in life, sometimes it throw you balls that, really come and smash in your head or smash in your face. And sometimes they're very, very difficult to dodge those balls. So when you are in that path of progress, in that path of awakening, you may experience some setback, some push backward instead of forward. And then you always question yourself, am I in the right journey? Am I on the right path? Because now this came into my life. How am I supposed to handle it? So when you think that everything goes well, the life doesn't look at it the same way. So how do you surpass or surmount this new mountain that comes to you and find other solution?
Well, the first thing is I toughened up a little bit because when I was going through the first few times of really trying to get on my feet, I really had a glass jaw. I really did. Life would throw me a curveball like you're talking about. Life would throw me a shot and I would just buckle. I would just buckle and I would fold and I would sink back into my self-destructive behaviors, whether it be a drink or a drug or acting promiscuous out there. I would fall right back into my vices, to my instant gratification, the things that may provide a boost of dopamine for a few moments, but ultimately will lead you to deeper depths of sadness and misery and all those things. So I thickened my skin. I started realizing like, hey man, just because you're starting to move forward doesn't mean it's going to get easy. Nobody said it's going to get easy. And in my opinion, it actually gets more difficult. And I talk about this on Championship Mindset Talks, is as we build our level of success and we get to certain heights, do you think that you're going to just maintain? No, you're not. You're going to have to vigorously work harder because now you're up here on the top. You're swimming with the sharks. You're up with folks that have been there for a long time. And guess what? They might not want you there. So, when things happen and things cause problems in your life or you get that gut shot, you have a decision. You have a decision to either buckle, fold, sink yourself back into misery and degradation and sink back down on the scale of life. Or you have the decision to go, okay, this is messed up, man, but I have to maintain my faculties, which means staying sober, thinking clearly, staying on your routines of exercise and prayer, meditation, or whatever it is for you. And then you'll probably be able to transverse those problems a lot better than you would be if you avoided them and then they come back and they're bigger. No, you stayed focused, you stayed disciplined, and you followed through, and those problems look a lot smaller on after all that.
I see. And you mentioned earlier, Robert, about those limiting beliefs that you were fighting day in and day out. So let's put aside being on drugs or alcohol or whatever else. Let's say someone doesn't suffer from those predicaments, but yet those limiting beliefs are mentally ingrained in their mind because of childhood and other circumstances that occurred in their lives. Now, how do you fight those? Because limiting belief can be even with those who are extremely successful, or the imposter syndrome, or anything that relates to those limiting beliefs. So how do you fight those, knowing that they're going to come in and out constantly in your mind and trying to circumvent them?
Well, I think the drugs and alcohol are just a sort of symptom of the problem. And if you do the root cause analysis, another Lean Six Sigma philosophy, then most of those people that are experiencing them problems, they probably cope in different ways. Where an addict may go to drug or drink, those people may shop or scroll on their cell phones endlessly, or overeat or whatever. They may just be less detrimental problems. But if you look at yourself and you look at the world, when you tend to get emotional or upset, pay attention. See what triggers you and see what you go to. And those will start making those connections in your life. But no matter where you are, where you're starting from, you're going to have these feelings. You're going to have these emotions. I constantly battle it from day to day. Imposter syndrome. Who am I to be speaking on this podcast, telling people how to be better? You know, we all experience those things. So that's number one. I think it's important to understand that everyone deals with these feelings, even politicians on the top of the world and millionaires on their yacht, and all these people still experience those moments of self-doubt. Number two, understand that it's temporary. Understand that you may be feeling like this now, but don't get sucked into the moments, because I talk about that quite a bit as well, because I could go through a day where I'm doing something and all of a sudden, like, I just get hit with a sad feeling and I start feeling sad about my life all of a sudden, sometimes unprovoked. And I just recognize this is temporary, and I'm not exactly sure why it's happening, but it's our job to deal with these and mitigate these problems. And the way that you mitigate these problems is getting out to nature, getting fresh air, drinking clean water, eating healthy foods, fasting every now and then to clear yourself out and detox, doing the prayer, doing the meditation. I also do cold water therapy. Now, these are tools, tips, and techniques that I use for me, but people have to find their own truth and find their own reasoning and find the things that make them have those feelings less. I don't know if you'll ever get to a place where you don't have those feelings, but I think you have to learn to cultivate the self-awareness to understand why you're having them feelings, when you're having them feelings, what things you do